Good evening and welcome to Enemy Within. It is Friday the 6th of November 2015. My name's Andy Young, Enemy Within on peoplesinternetradio.com. And it's been quite an eventful day today actually. I've been installing new hardware on my computer and I managed to break a hard drive. It did cause a little bit of panic leading up to the show. Not to worry because we've got an excellent guest co-host tonight, I think we can call it, because we've got joined again by Jason, who's stepped in at the last minute on quite a few shows and done a great job. And also from show number 12, which was on the 25th of August, we've got Bernie Gadd. Good evening, Bernie. Good evening, Jason.
Hello. Good evening. How you doing, fellas? Jason. So, yeah. Cool. Nice to hear your hardware story, Andy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Jimmy did say something about, well, they call them hard drives, but they're not that hard, are they?
Well, it depends, doesn't it, I suppose, what you've got on it.
Yeah. Oh, I've just got a message that music's still playing, but I've stopped all that. Thank you for that, guys. So Bernie, last time we were on, you told us a lot of information about Roger Greaves and James Shackleton.
Yeah.
Can you just give us a brief recap on that before we go on, for those who weren't listening last time?
Yeah, we were talking about Roger. He's a notorious speed whale, terrorised London during the 70s and 80s. Give you some examples of what he used to do. He used to travel around places like Euston Station, Victoria Bus Station, places like that, and he used to pick up runaways basically. He used to take them back to his hostel with they thought they were getting a free bed for the night, and they got a lot more than what they bargained for. They reckon it could have abused thousands and thousands of kids, anywhere from sort of like 11 years old, about 19, 20 years. So I think once they reached 20 years old, they were no good to him. There's evidence to suggest that as well. He was, as you know, going by my research anyway, he had a few houses in London that he was using. Each one of them were paid for by the council. So every person that was in there was paid. Sorry.
Can I just put in just for a second, right? Just for anybody that's sort of new to this. I just want to explain, if you've not heard Bernie's story, it's on Enemy Within podcast number 12, is it, Andy?
That's it, number 12 from the 25th of August, mate.
Yeah, so if you could just, you're a survivor of abuse from the 1970s, so I just want you to just sort of, from 1972, so I just want you to sort of give the listeners a sort of brief sort of introduction to who you are, how you got into researching this sort of thing, just a couple of minutes, just so that because people can go back, and look at podcast number 12. So if you just give us a brief introduction into sort of where you come from.
It's still very kind of. I mean, not much trouble was exactly much. It really
Just a minute there, Bernie. We're getting a bit of feedback from Jason's end. He's just gone to grab his headphones, so when he's got them plugged in, we'll be good to go.
I'll mute the mic.
That's excellent, mate. Cheers. Sorry, go ahead, Bernie.
Nothing ever happened to me in my life until 1972. I was abducted basically. I was taken, and I was raped. I was penetratively raped on many occasions over to that. Sorry.
No, it's alright, Bernie. Take a second, mate.
Right, I switched off. I'm going to be honest with you. I pretty much switched off while all this was going on. The first time it happened, obviously, my senses were very aware and alert. They hurt me badly. And then after 2 days, it finished pretty much as quickly as it had started. And I was let go.
Yeah.
I've kept quiet about it all these years, basically because somebody who I cared for and loved very, very much told me never to mention it again.
Uh-huh.
I was 11 years old at the time, you know. I did as I was told, basically. The person that said this to me, she said it to me because she cared about me and she didn't want me to go through anything bad. There was no shame in it, I don't think. I don't for a second think it was done to save the family from embarrassment, not at all.
It was about protecting you, Bernie.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. That's understandable.
You know. Before I was abducted, though, the weeks prior to it, I was groomed at school by somebody. Now, this person, he abused me on 3 different occasions. He did it in his house. He did it in a derelict building near where my school was, and he also did it in a play area that we used to go to, which we locally called the boxes. So it was a concrete climbing area, which you couldn't really see into it. But getting away from that for a second, you know, he abused me on 3 different occasions, like I said. But he was the person that took me to where Roger Gleaves lives, and that's how I know it was Roger Gleaves, because I must point out that the people that raped me were all wearing masks.
Yeah.
I never saw no faces. But with everything that happened and that, I know it was Roger Gleaves. It must have been Roger Gleaves. In fact, there's no doubt in my mind that it was Roger Gleaves, because to be taken to his house by somebody that was already abusing me, to meet him, I remember the street, I remember what he looked like. Always remember Alf from Home and Away, and that's who when I see Alf on Home and Away, I think of Roger Gleaves, you see, because there's spitting double of him. And
now, when you mentioned those masks, Bernie, from what I remember, you did say they were the Guy Fawkes mask, what people now call anonymous masks.
Absolutely.
I happen to know, as far as I know, you went on the Million Mask March. Now that must be.
No, I didn't go on the Million Mask. I was going to go, but
I apologise, mate.
I didn't go. I did actually wear a mask, one of those masks, when we went down to the London event on September the 12th. It was to get over my phobia, and I couldn't even put it on my face when I did a speech in London, and I couldn't even put the mask over my face. I just had it sat on my head. I still can't get used to it, I'll be honest with you.
Well,
it just still reminds me, takes me back.
Yeah, that's pretty understandable, mate. I get where you're coming from there. So we've had a bit of a recap now. Obviously we were keen to get you back on because the information you put out was fantastic. You said you got loads more, but it appears well, you've been telling me you've been uncovering some new information.
Yeah, you have to bear with me a second with this one though, because
yeah, sure, mate. I mean, if there's something you wanted to talk about before your new information, feel free, Bernie. I'm not setting the agenda. You go where you want with this, mate.
I found out through research that there's a strong possibility that both the Savile brothers and Gleaves knew each other. Johnny especially, because Gleaves had, hang on, was it GB? I think it was GB. GB Security Company. He went under the name of Brian. Now, part of the thing that he had was to guard, he was the head of security at Tooting Bec Hospital. And at the same time, Apple were looking at the same time, Jimmy Savile was both brought up in Leeds. There's a lot to suggest. It was Amiga, actually. It wasn't GB. GB was another company he had. It was Amiga Security.
That's right, man. It's funny.
Yeah.
I was just hearing
Jimmy Savile and Roger Gleaves,
yeah.
both of them were both members of Pi as well.
Uh-huh. I was just going to stop you there because I was hearing a little bit of a tapping. I didn't know if you was typing on your keyboard, but it started here. I think it's fireworks in it, mate.
It quite possibly could be, or MI5 trying to get in my window, one at the two.
Have they not been to see you this week?
Say it again?
Have they not been to see you this week already?
MI5? No, I've been lucky so far. They've left me alone, but yeah. Every telephone, they got the conversation like in Westminster, people in the VIP thing. The phone goes, get it off.
Okay, we're not having much luck there, are we? It seems to be cutting in and out.
Bernie is cutting in and out a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. The wonders of Skype and. The wonders of
Skype and talking about Westminster VIP paedophiles.
Absolutely, yeah. I remember last time I started to talk about Mountbatten and the link with King Corey because he visited King Corey, you know. And when I started talking about that last time, I got cut off as well.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, my computer wiped out completely when you started talking about
I'm so sorry about that, mate. I'm really sorry.
No, it's not your fault. We know where it's coming from. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we can't blame them either because they'll just cover it up, wouldn't they?
It appears that's what they do with all of it, yes.
Anyway, really,
I think it'll probably be prudent to try and reconnect with Bernie because all we're getting really is just cutting out all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. What we'll do then, we'll chuck a tune on for a few minutes, and I'll reconnect the call, and we'll come back in a few minutes and try again. This is one from an excellent band from the northeast. It's called The Game. It's by The Force, and it seemed very appropriate for what we'll be talking about tonight. Back in a few minutes.
Seek the truth in the eyes of our children. Nothing can hide their despair. There is no way for us to regain their innocence. We can search, but we know it's not there. But when you play your games, you must understand there is a price so high. The tide is in your hands. You say you won, but I say you're wrong. The loss of a child is no victory for anyone. There's a feeling that the world will start over again, and you're gonna get on with your life. Get on with your life.
Hiya folks and welcome back. Managed to reconnect the call and got Bernie back on, and we seem to have a better line this time. So Bernie, you were telling us about Gleaves and the connection to the Savile brothers, and that's where we started having the problems hearing you.
Yeah. Well, like I said, with my research, I have actually found that there is a clear link. Starting off with where they were both, the age of them, where they came from, their membership to Pi and stuff like that. But like I say, there was a company called Amiga Security, and it was actually Gleaves' company. Although he used an alias, Brian, it was actually Roger Gleaves, and it's been proven that it was Roger Gleaves that actually had the company. And John Savile was working at Tooting Bec Hospital, which is where Gleaves was the head of security. Now, John Savile, obviously not as well known as his brother Jimmy, obviously we know all about him, but John Savile was also a convicted sex offender. He was arrested for sexually assaulting a patient at Tooting Bec. What happened, I can't remember the exact sentence that he got or what happened, you know what I mean? But he left there, but he was living, and I found this out through another bit of research, that he was actually living round the corner, literally round the corner from where I was abducted from. Which I thought was quite bizarre, really, you know what I mean? Because I'd never even heard of John Savile until about a month or two ago, so, not long ago, it was just something that came up while we were researching this stuff. Because I didn't know the whole of the Savile family were, well, the brothers anyway. There was something not quite right about all three of them, was there? But yeah, it turned out that he was literally round the corner from where I was abducted from. So it beggars the question: how well did he know him? If he knew him, like I say, there is plenty of reason to believe that they could have come into contact, especially when you think they both worked at the same place. And Gleaves probably had full run of the place, being the head of security, I would imagine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so Bernie, you've made this link between John Savile, who was Jimmy Savile's brother, so that's a link between Gleaves and John Savile, and then obviously by family you get Jimmy Savile as well.
Yeah.
Can you sort of recap on how many famous people, or how many people that have subsequently been found guilty of sex offences, and all the different offences that Gleaves has been associated or linked with that you've come across?
Let me just find this here, because I can be more specific with this, you see, because I've actually got his timeline here. Sorry about this, it's just I've got to get the paperwork to be specific, because I don't want to be I'm not making it up as such, but I want it to be as factual as I possibly can. I mean, he was first arrested in 1959 for abusing somebody while he was in the Army Cadets. He was actually arrested on his wedding day, believe it or not. Right. Right, this is it. He appeared in 1959 at Winchester Assizes. I think that's how you pronounce it. Is it Assizes or Assizes? It's a court anyway. It's a Crown Court.
Assizes, Bernie.
Assizes, sorry. That should show my fitness here, I think. Right, and he was charged with attempting to commit a serious unnatural act on a boy aged 14, and he was sentenced to 3 years in jail.
He was also a self-proclaimed man of the cloth as well, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, at the very same time that he got arrested that first time, he did. He set up the old Catholic Church. Well, he didn't actually. It was already a church. It was just a different part of it. And he went. That's where he started getting all his contacts. In the early days, I mean, he was involved with Barrington Evans. He was the proper head of it. And years later, Gleaves actually stole his name and used it in one of I think it was in GB Security. He called himself Barry Evans. And remembering going back to 1961, Barrington Evans was the man that set up, helped, he was the one that ordained him in the first place, you see, as a bishop. Because everyone, you know, a lot of people think that he wasn't a real bishop. He actually was a real bishop. He was ordained as bishop. And he was a very, very clever man, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bernie, because a lot of the newspaper articles that I've found, they refer to Gleaves as the self-styled Bishop of Medway, when in reality he was no such thing. He was a bishop.
He was a proper bishop, and he was an ordained bishop. Not in the proper Catholic Church; it was in the old Catholic Church. And the church that he actually had, it was the Church of Saint Bonaventure. And it was in Crystal Palace, where the train station is. There was a little hut next door to it where they used to have scouts, and that was his church.
Right.
Which wasn't far, actually. Do you remember I told you last time about John Allen? John Allen run one of the children's homes in West Norwood. And he was a convicted paedophile himself, you know, and people that were in the North Wales Abuse Inquiry will know of him quite well, because he went, I think was it Bryn Allen, I think he went to, and carried on his dirty stuff there, you know. But Gleaves was based in Brixton, in Branksome Road, and which is in Lambeth, by the way, in case for guys that don't know it. He had all these hostels. He's been in the Salvation Army. He wore social worker uniforms. Anything in uniform that would get the trust of a child or a young person, he did it. Now, I don't actually know in the early days what it was with him, whether it was children or whether it was to make money.
Sorry about that, Bernie. I think we've got a fireworks party right outside the window.
Oh, lovely.
I just jumped out of my skin. It's the one that didn't bang my head on the ceiling.
I thought one of your light bulbs had blown up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, anything in any kind of uniform, which is a story we hear all too often. People go for these positions of trust, where they gain the trust of children, in order to abuse children, yeah?
Absolutely. Now, he had a thing about railways. I know it's going to sound really bizarre, but he had a thing about railways as well, you know. He was involved in so there was something up in Euston, it was to do with a building that Prince Charles had even stepped in and saved it, you see, and he was involved in that. He used to work at Norwood Railway Station. He was a station foreman at Norwood Railway Station as well, which was very close to that children's home I was telling you about, with John Allen there.
Now, Bernie, just to bring back and sort of get a grip of his MO, what you're saying is that he sort of embedded himself into any organisation where he would have access to children,
Yes,
and if he was given a uniform, he would probably, obviously people equate uniforms with authority, so that would give him a certain amount of
He had a fetish for his uniforms. I don't think anyone saw him in normal clothes, to be honest with you. From what I can gather, he was always walking around with some kind of a uniform on. I mean, even up to looking like a bishop, you know what I'm saying, with a flipping hat and everything, you know, and the flowing gown, you know.
Yeah, but then he started to sort of branch out on his own for himself. Didn't he start to get properties from councils?
Yes, he did.
Make sort of like doss houses, what you might call them, that young runaways would flock to, and he'd use that to abuse the children.
Well, in fairness, that's how he started out, you know. It was taking in runaways that, I hate to use the word rent boys, but I can't think of anything else at the moment, you know what I'm saying? Young boys that he was using for sex, basically. And they were homeless, some of them. A lot of them were homeless. He put them up in the hostels with the full blessing of Lambeth Council, who were, paying the equivalent of what housing benefit is now for him to keep them there. I think he had about 5 or 6 properties, to be honest with you, all over the place. I mean, he had them in Hackney. He had one in Camden area. There was one in Austerfield, which is that's an interesting one because he was involved in a murder that took place at the one in Austerfield. It was Billy McPhee. I told you about him. I think I touched on it last time about Billy McPhee. Billy McPhee worked at one of his hostels in Hackney, and the guy, I can't remember the guy's name who run the place, but he did a runner basically, and Roger Gleaves wanted to know where he was. Now we're going back to 1975, and this is how we ended up getting caught in the end, you know, for the Johnny Go Home stuff, right? So they've got Billy McPhee. Billy's done a runner, and they found him. And they took him to this house in Austerfield. Now they've tortured that poor lad, you know, they've burnt him with cigarettes, they've stabbed him, they just smashed him up pretty much. Now Roger Gleaves was sat in the room laughing while they were doing it. And it ended up that they killed him and dumped his body. But when caught for it, the guys that actually did the murder obviously got life for murder. Roger Gleaves got 4 years for buggery, so God knows what he was doing during this, because to get 4 years for buggery, I don't know what he was doing to put, you know, what that was about, because he was in the room, and one of the guys that murdered Billy, his wife was there as well, and she was the one who said that Roger Gleaves had been home. So he was a witness as well, you know, if that ever got done for murder. I honestly believe Roger Gleaves was protected high up, I really do. I've always said this. He's never. The last sentence he had was 15 years. Was it 15? Yeah, I think it was 15 years. And that was about the most substantial sentence he's had over the years. Usually he gets 3 years, 4 years, 6 months. You know, he gets silly little sentences like that. You try and find any court reports, and they're all locked for 80 years. Why is that?
So what you're saying, Bernie, is even after this guy had been convicted of sexual offences against children, he was still able to put himself into a position where he was being gifted by the local council properties in which he could house vulnerable young children, runaways, etc. And then he was also being paid for the rent from the council as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this sort of links in. There must be somebody at the council or in that particular council or someone in authority that knows what's going on who can link these dots.
Absolutely, definitely. Now, you know, I'm suspecting that someone like Clive Driscoll, who was in charge of one of the police operations in Lambeth, knows a hell of a lot more than he's letting on as well. He dealt with all the abuse that was going on in Lambeth, all the corruption and everything else. So for him not to have come across Roger Gleaves is ridiculous. It had to have happened. He must know about Roger Gleaves because, you know, social services, the probation service, they were sending people to Gleaves to put them in these hostels. They was, you know, they gifted him these houses. He didn't buy them. He weren't renting them. He was gifted them, and he was being paid housing benefit for them. You know, can you imagine if me or you went into a council now and says, "Oh, can you give us an house to live in? We won't want to pay for it. Will you give us one? So we'll put a few runaways in it." They're going to say, "On your bike, aren't they?" You know, I mean, he was never checked anyway, because like I say, in 1959 he was convicted of sexual assault against a young person, and he was jailed for 3 years for it. So if they'd have done any checks, he wouldn't even have been allowed near children, would he?
No. What about his, just again, give us a brief rundown and a quick recap on his business partner.
Which one?
The
James Shackleton?
James Shackleton, he's the most interesting one.
Oh, I love James Shackleton. Do you know something? I dream about that guy sometimes. No, James Shackleton, right? I'm gonna make some what I believe. It's not even what I think. I just know it. You know, when you just know something, you've got a gut feeling, and there is evidence to prove it as well, right? I think James Shackleton is up to his neck in child murder, child abuse. Obviously, I mean, I don't know if you remember last time I was talking about it, I actually think he was involved in the murder of Jill Dando.
He was certainly arrested.
He was arrested for it, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, when he was arrested, his excuse for being there was that he was looking for wood to build a coffin. Now, with the best will in the world, I'm sure that most undertakers have their wood delivered to them, or the coffins are pre-ordered, they're made for them and sent to the undertakers. I never heard of an undertaker going out in his car and collecting scrap wood to make a coffin, you know. But his story was accepted. His story was accepted. You know what I'm saying? But bizarrely, after that, he decided when he was stood outside Jill Dando's house, he needed to go for a wee. Yeah. Now I'm saying, man, I weren't there, so I can't obviously know for definite. But he went to a park which I've checked on. It's half a mile from Jill Dando's house, right? He was that desperate for a wee, he went half a mile to this park. But when he got there, instead of having a wee, this man approached him and wanted to have sex with him. This is his story. This is his story. This bloke wanted to have sex with him. And he ran away again. So I don't even know if he's had this wee or not, you know what I'm saying? It's sort of like...
Yeah.
So he's done a 1 mile round trip to go for a wee. Yeah?
Yeah.
His reason for being on Jill Dando's street, which I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of scrap wood lying around. It's a very posh area where she comes from. I can't imagine there's a lot of scrap wood hanging around on that street anyway, you know what I'm saying? But while he's there, Jill Dando's been shot. You know, and you know, she was executed. Let's be honest, we all know she was executed. She got a bullet to the head. Yeah. And, you know, but he was waiting at a bus stop. Now, he was in his car. Why would he be standing at a bus stop when he's in his car? I don't know if it was his hearse or whatever, I don't know. But he had a vehicle with him and he was out searching for wood. Yet he was waiting for a bus, sweating. What? I don't, you know, call me thick. But if you're calling me thick, then what are the coppers that arrested him? They must be really thick to accept that.
No, they're not, are they? And of course, Shackleton is linked with Gleaves. Now, we've got a question from Mark Fraggs. And he says... was Gleaves connected with the intelligence services? Because it sounds like he's been protected and had a free rein to do whatever he wants.
Right, I'm going to be honest with you, there's no proof of it, but there's lots of rumours that Gleaves was involved with the intelligence service. I can't say who it was, MI5, MI6, whoever, I don't know. It could be special, I've just got no idea. But the point is that if you look at the research, there is reason to believe that Gleaves may have been involved. And when you look at the protection that he had as well, it's easy to think, you know, it's easy to go down that route, you know, conspiracy theory, maybe, but there is reason to believe that he was protected by someone very high up,
Yeah, well, you raised the point about why the record's closed for 80 years. It seems to me it's pretty much an open secret that the intelligence services use people's predilections and even steer them towards them, get them involved in all kinds of paedophile acts as a way of controlling them. Because if they've got something on you that's going to mean you spend the rest of your life in jail and lose everything you've ever worked for or strived for, they can control you. You will do anything they say. And that to me is an open secret. So the suggestion seems pretty obvious to me.
But if you couple that, Andy, with also they're also going to be able to carry on in the activity that they are being blackmailed for, that's also another incentive. So not only are they going to be protected, they're going to be able to continue with their activities.
Yeah, I don't think that Roger Gleaves is the sort of bloke that gets blackmailed, though. I think Roger Gleaves is the sort of man that does the blackmailing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I said to you, he's a very, very clever man. I mean, when he was in prison, I mean, he gained 40 O-levels and a vast amount of A-levels as well. He got a BA in a certain subject as well. He got that clever while he was inside that when he come out, he actually, believe it or not, after everything he'd done, applied for a teaching job.
Oh, dear.
And it was only when they did checks on him and found out what he'd been done for. But that's how smooth the guy is, you know what I'm saying? Most people have been in trouble and they go for an interview and they're scared shitless are going to find out they've done shoplifting or whatever it is that they're going for a job interview for, you know. This guy, he's got numerous offences for everything from child abuse, as in just assault. There's charges of buggery, which is an old offence, which is anal rape, basically. It used to be a criminal offence to have anal sex at one point, but it wouldn't have mattered with him because it was children he were doing it to, so it was illegal anyway, you know. But back in them days, buggery, even with someone of his own age, would have been illegal, do you know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
people of his own age were safe, actually.
Yes.
But he also tried to have this mask of respectability with the title bishop. I mean, that's going to get him past a lot of different obstacles, is having the title bishop. Do you think that had some effect, and do you think he used that, or do you think that was cast upon him to be able to use? Sorry, mate. I'm just saying, did he use the title bishop? Did that give him some respectability and sort of some immunity as well?
Well, he used that title to get what he wanted. When he went to the council and asked for these houses, I mean, he'd already set up charities. He had charity numbers. This was a proper setup. This isn't the sort of thing that your average villain's going to do. You know, he was set up properly. I mean, he had so many bank accounts, it was unreal. Post office accounts they were. All the money was paid into these post office accounts. And I think when he got arrested for fraud, and he had about 30 different, 30 or 40, maybe even more. I mean, I haven't got the exact number here, but we're talking this kind of number, and I say it could be more than that. All these accounts that he emptied before he got caught. And all this is money that he's made from the council for these children who were being sent to him. Like I said before, I mean, it weren't just runaways, you know. I mean, the council, the probation service, social services, they were sending children to him. They actually sent children to him because he set himself up as a charity, a homeless charity, and people, young lads coming out of prison, 17, 18 years old, he was employing them as security guards. He was paying them something like £1 an hour, 75 pence an hour or something like that. He wasn't feeding them. There were no toilet facilities in the hostels. It basically was what it was, you know what I mean? It was just an house for them to doss in, you know. But let's say, I mean, he used these kids to work for him. And and I'll give you an idea how successful he was as a security guard. He did pop concerts. This is his company. He did pop concerts. I mean, he even did the security for a Joe Bogner world title fight. You know, this isn't small. You know, to get that kind of contract, to get that kind of job, you've got to be pretty well known. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're a big lad, Jason. You know what I mean? But if you turned up at Joe Bogner's flipping dressing room and said, "Can I do security for your show tonight?" He'd tell you to piss off, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
You know where I'm coming from?
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, to get that kind of, and it would have been contract, wouldn't it? He'd have had a contract to do that job. Now, you've got to be a proper business. You know, there's got to be a lot going on. You've got to know people. You know, we're talking about underworld sort of thing here. You know, I mean, you know, to do that kind of thing.
Tell us about some of the councils. Which councils gave him properties, and perhaps some of the names that people might recognise that were part of that council. And of course, there's one particular guy who was in Pye as well, isn't there?
There's several. You know, there's several people that were in. You know, because Roger Gleaves was actually one of the founder members of Pye. You know, and they would have had meetings, obviously, in the early days. It's not like now, is it? Where it had been like a chat room on the internet. You know what I mean? These guys had to meet up. They had to know each other. And you know, when you're talking about people like Peter Wrighton, who was one of the probably the foremost childcare expert in the country. You know, he advised the government on childcare. I mean, there's laws in place now that Peter Wrighton would have been responsible for bringing into place back in the day. You had Peter Heyman, who was the head of MI6. He was one of the founder members. Charles Hornsby, he's the heir to the W.H. Smith fortune. Now, Charles Hornby, as well as being a Pye member, do you remember a film or a book called The Dilly Boys?
No.
Right, it was set around Playland and around Piccadilly Circus in the 1970s. They were picking up young boys and they were putting them in the window at the burger bar, at the Wimpy Burger Bar. I think I did mention it last time. I don't think I mentioned Charles Hornsby, you know, but, you know, there was a big police operation going on at the time, and they caught all of them. There was loads of them. And one of them actually threatened to spill the beans on them all, because he said that Charles Hornby was nothing in comparison to some of the other names that he had. You know, nothing, absolutely nothing. And, you know, he was a big man. I mean, he had a big estate in Gloucester. You know, Prince Charles came to tea and stuff like this. You know, we're not talking about some idiot, I think they're just picking kids up, you know, we're talking of stature, someone of money, you know what I'm saying? Why did he need to do this? Because obviously money wasn't his thing, it was young boys that he wanted. And obviously homeless people, runaways, no one asks questions, do they?
No, Bernie, we're getting some quite remarkable responses in the chat room. One or two new faces in there. We've got Emily Webster and we've got Sarah Reeves. Both, I believe, are friends of yours. And Sarah just posted, Bishop John Harding, Crystal Palace Railway Station, disused waiting room used to falsely ordain Roger Gleaves to bishop. Harding's
that was actually the chaplain Bonaventure.
Ah, right. He said Harding's son accused of theft in court. Roger Gleaves stood for him as bishop and character witness. And then Michael Harding was married by Gleaves. And then Michael Harding charged with Billy's murder. Gleaves' henchman for hostels amongst many.
Yeah. I bounced off Sarah, I've got to be honest with you. She helps me with a lot of the research I do. I struggle with names sometimes, so I'm really glad, and thank you, Sarah. I'm really glad that she's brought that up, because I get confused, because there's so many flipping names, Andy, you know what I'm saying, that sometimes I do get confused, and sometimes I accuse the wrong person.
Yeah, easy done, mate.
I'm so glad I got Charles Hornby this time, because I think I called him Peter Wrighton last time.
Right. Sarah's also added, also connected and allowed by councils to fund him to house all these children. British Transport Police allowed all of his pickups.
Absolutely. Now, where she's going with this one, I'm going to go give the example of what she's saying. You see, I put a video on Facebook, Johnny Go Home, well, part of it. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, it starts out. You can see Tommy Wiley, who's the young lad, getting off the train and walking through the station. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff, isn't it? That's Euston Station. Now they say that back then they never had no CCTV, so they couldn't see it. Well, if that's the case, how comes the start of Johnny Go Home is CCTV? Now, Roger Gleaves picked Tommy Wiley up and took him back to Branksome Road. I think he groomed Tommy Wiley, and Tommy Wiley himself turned into a pretty similar kind of character. And he was going out, and he was doing pretty much the same thing as what my first abuser, Joey Wolford, did. I think he was groomed to pick children up and take them back there, young kids. But the British Rail thing, that Sarah pointed out, there's no way on earth he could have walked around that mainline train station without being seen. And I think it was the Salvation Army or the Bishop's stuff, whatever it was, that helped him to get away with that. If someone like us was to walk around the train station picking young kids up, we'd have been arrested, simple as. But he got away with it. And that's because he had the backup of the councils. You know, that was what his job was, if you like, if you can class it as a job, you know what I'm saying? That's what he was there for, to pick up young runaways and give them a shelter, a place of safety.
And how do you suppose they were paid, these young lads? Do you think they were paid with their room and board, or it's just a one out of the air thing?
Right. Well, I think the room and board was definitely one of the things that got him on board in the first place. But he was employing them in his security company. You know, these young lads were working for him in his security company. You know, so they'd have been working on the gate at Tooting Beck. They'd have been the security at the fight, the concerts that he did. But he was paying them 75p an hour. You know, that's as much as I can say to answer that question, because, like you said, I mean, you've thrown it out. It's not something I've done a great deal of research on, but I do know that what I was just saying then about him employing him in security, you go for a fact that that's true, because I've got evidence of that here somewhere. I'd have to look through it to bloody find it though, because there's much work in front of me. It's unreal.
As they were teenage boys anyway, they probably got paid in sort of alcohol and drugs and that sort of thing anyway. I kept their addiction sustained so that they carry on doing this.
Absolutely, yeah. Be positive about that. But he took them off. He was paying them cash in hand. They didn't even, you know. So they were probably. I mean, got to remember, I was 11 years old at the time, so I wouldn't even know when the dole started up. But if there was dole around, they'd have been getting dole, the housing benefit and stuff like that. Plus, he was paying them cash in hand for doing whatever job he was doing for. But at night time, the job become more sinister because he was having his pick of them. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, and that's factual. That is. That's you know. There's plenty of stories. If you go out and research them, there's plenty of stories of people who even remember it happening. You know, they come out with names and stuff. But these children, and they were children, they were being abused on a terrible scale. I mean, when he was with Richard Becker, for instance, Richard Becker had AIDS. He died of AIDS. It didn't stop him from abusing kids, though. It didn't stop him from raping them. You know what I'm saying?
That is absolutely dreadful. Bernie, we're just coming to the end of the first hour now, so we did have a music break at the start, but that was due to Skype problems. Are you good for a bit of a wee break now then, Bernie?
Yeah. Put kettle on, eh?
Yeah, we'll stick the kettle on, wee break, whatever we need. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to Enemy Within. We've just been having a chat with Bernie off air and just putting to him all the things that have been posted in the chat room from Sarah and Emily there, and yeah, he's in full agreement with all of that. Right, Bernie. It was mentioned about Gleaves and what was the name? Gleaves and somebody else met in Wandsworth prison. Becker, that's it. Met in Wandsworth prison.
Yeah, well, that's true. They actually did meet in Wandsworth prison, and the thing that stands out about that little liaison is the fact that Richard Becker was a close friend of Sidney Cook, or associate anyway. I'm saying friend, I mean associate anyway.
Yeah.
And Sidney Cook in his own right is as well probably more notorious, because probably a lot more people have heard of Sidney Cook than they have of Roger Gleaves. But Sidney Cook did murder children. Jason Swift obviously being the most famous of the lot of them, but you know there was another one, and you know there were others. There was also a suspicion, but it was never proven, that he was responsible for the murder of Mark Tilsley, who came from Wokingham in Berkshire. Now, I found that one quite strange, because there was an MP back at the time as well called Van Straubenzee. I don't know if you've heard of him. Now he was a convicted paedophile, and he was actually the MP for Wokingham in Berkshire at the time. And he was suspected of child trafficking and abuse and stuff. So you know, again, it's another link. You know, I can't prove it, obviously, and I can't. At the end of the day, I can't prove a lot of the stuff that I say. But you know, coincidences, like I told you last time, coincidence. Me and Jason's got the same hairstyle. You know what I mean? That's a coincidence. You know. Someone being there when someone's being shot through the head, I don't think that's such of a coincidence, especially when there's other things that have gone on as well, you know. But, now Sidney Cook, I was talking about Sidney Cook, wasn't I? I always go off on the deep end there.
No problem.
Now Sidney Cook was part of a gang called the Dirty Dozen, and they kidnapped children, and they seemed to play games with them. Sidney Cook, I think, you know, when he killed Jason Swift, from what I know of it, he strangled him during a sex game. He didn't actually intentionally murder Jason Swift, although saying that said, in my opinion, if you kill someone in while you're committing another offence, then I'm sorry, but to me that's murder.
Well, if you've intentionally caused grievous bodily harm, or if your intent was to cause grievous bodily harm, which is, if you're strangling somebody, that is obviously what's going on, then you're guilty of murder.
Absolutely, but he got found not guilty. He got found guilty of manslaughter. You know, he never even got done for Jason Swift's murder. You know, but there was an awful lot of at the time. I mean, like you say, I mean, you had Gleaves doing it. You had Cook and his gang doing it. You had Holmes and his lot doing it down on the meat rack, and then you got Abraham Jacobs from Battersea. Now he worked in both children's homes and adult care homes, and he he was working the meat rack at the same time as Hornsby. Now, there was a big police operation going on, and they arrested everybody except for one person, Abraham Jacobs. And if you remember last time, I told you there was a link to it between him and Dennis Nielsen, the mass murderer.
Yes, I do remember that, Bernie, yeah.
Yeah. Protected. I'm absolutely positive of it. You know, I'm not going to get into the Jewish part of it, you know what I mean? But and Abraham Jacobs, he was Jewish, and you know, unfortunately, as anti-Semitic as it might sound, there's an awful lot of known Jewish paedophiles, and I actually do believe that there was a religious link going on. I honestly think that the Catholic Church and the Jewish Church are very, very closely related. There's a lot of links between them, some of the things that they've done and stuff like that.
Well, some of the things that they do to baby boys when they're born.
Oh, absolutely. You know what I mean? It's. I don't really want to get into the Jewish part of it, but there is a big link. I mean, maybe that's for another show, you know, because that really is a big. But I think you need someone with a bit more knowledge of this. You know what I'm saying? Because the church is evil. Trust me. I've already said this to people before. If when I die, if the choice is between heaven and hell, what I know about heaven, I think I'd like to go downstairs. I'm really scared about going up there.
Yeah, there's an interesting point just been brought up, if I can slot that in, Bernie, by Mahatma Coat in the chat room, and he said, why did the new Messiah, the one who everybody said, oh, let's give him a chance, he might be better than all the other ones, why did the new Messiah, Jeremy Corbyn, turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to Jeffrey Dickens?
Well, it's worse than that, actually, Andy. I'm glad you brought Jeremy Corbyn up, because back in the day, when Islington was under suspicion because of there is accusations been made that child abuse went on in every single children's home in Islington, every single one of them. Not most, every one of them. And Margaret, shall I call her Hodge? Yeah, Hodge. Margaret Oppenheimer Hodge. She was in charge of the council at the time. And when the accusations were made by I'm not sure what newspaper it was, but it was one of the big newspapers made accusations. She said, oh, it's just gutter journalism, you're just trying to get a story. But there was a social worker who highlighted her fears to Margaret Hodge, Liz Davis, that was her name. Now, Liz Davis actually went to Margaret Hodge and told her about the child abuse that was going on, and she knew for a fact this was going on. Margaret Hodge removed Liz Davis from her post. So Liz Davis emailed Jeremy Corbyn, who was actually the MP for Islington at the time, surprises, funnily enough, you know, and he never got back to her. He never got back to her, even though a senior social worker had made a complaint to him about abuse that was going on within the children's homes. Now, I'm not anti-Corbyn, but I've emailed him and I've asked him for an answer as well, and I'm actually waiting on an answer from the House of Parliament now. But I don't think I'll get a proper answer. If Liz Davis didn't get one, what chance has Bernie Gadd got? You know.
Well, I don't know about the listeners, but I do send quite a few emails to my MP, and yeah, I get an answer, but it's the same waffly bullshit answer every time, never addresses the issue, and oh yes, we the Tories, we're doing everything to make your life wonderful, when we all know that ain't the case, is it?
No, I ain't. You just bear with me a second.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
When I sent the original email, I did get a lot of waffle because I couldn't send it straight to Jeremy Corbyn. I had to go through my Rosie. She's my MP, Rosie Winterton, and I had to go through her. Now, my original email was, could you tell me why Jeremy Corbyn has failed to respond to the allegations of child abuse in Islington? Here's the reply. Thank you for your, hang on. 3 emails. First one. Before we can get into your email, we need to know that you are a constituent. Can you please tell us your address? So I sent back a thing telling them the name of the street that I lived on.
Yeah.
So I get another email back. Thank you for your quick response. Could you please tell us the number of the house that you live at? Okay. Why would you want to know that? You know you know what street I live on. She goes, before we can carry on with your request, we need to know who you are and where you live. So I've sent it back and I told them. So we're about 4 emails down the line and I've not even heard anything from Rosie Winter. This is all between me and her secretary. I still haven't heard nothing now. But what I have had is an email from Amy Dixon. Thank you for your email dated the 29th of September to the Right Honourable Rosie Winterton MP. It would be very helpful if you could confirm your residential address at Raisin Road. I've already done it 4 times. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Waffly bullshit pretty much describes that, doesn't it then, Bernie?
Yeah, we're just waffling on just to stop me.
Yeah.
Right, so the last one I've got is your emails have been received. However, as I am sure you are aware, Rosie does need time to have sight of your correspondence and is currently extremely busy. I can only apologise for the delay, but I can ensure that you will get a reply in due course. And the reply eventually did come, but it wasn't from Rosie Winterton, it was from her secretary. Thank you for your emails to Rosie Winterton MP. Rosie has asked me to let you know that your correspondence has been forwarded on to the office of Jeremy Corbyn. So I'm assuming now that my next one will be from Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. So I've asked him a straight question.
Yeah.
I don't know how he can waffle around that one, the answer.
No, I've heard
a straight question.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people asking that question, Bernie, and there doesn't seem to be an answer forthcoming at the minute. And if I were you, I wouldn't hold your breath while you're waiting for that reply.
I'm not. But it's all evidence, isn't it? It's all evidence at the end of the day. It's just something that I can put and say, well, you know, we tried this, we tried that. You know, one day somebody's going to come forward and they're going to spill the beans on what really happened. The closest there is at the moment is Clive Driscoll. He's wrote a book. He was the copper that was in charge of the inquiry into Lambeth. There was all sorts going on with that, you know. There was abuse, there was torture chambers underneath the council town hall. Bullock Forsyth, he was the guy that worked for him. He got murdered because he threatened to blow the lid on it all, and he was murdered. He had his head smashed in, and his house set on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Quite a famous case, actually. You can find it on YouTube.
Getting back to Gleaves, I mean, he must have come to the attention to some people because I think he said last time that he was mentioned in Hansard, is it?
Yeah, but this was afterwards.
Yeah, this is obviously afterwards, but it must have come to somebody's attention.
Yeah, it was Dennis Skinner. I think it was Dennis Skinner that brought it up. He wanted to know how a prolific paedophile was able to basically take the piss out of the council and to do the things that he did, and no one ever asked any questions. I mean, you know, back in his day, I mean, he made an absolute fortune, and you know, for it to get to the House of, not only the House of Commons, it was also brought up in the House of Lords as well. And I think that the House of Lords was probably where the dangerous stuff was going off. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not so sure it was the MPs at the time in the 70s. I think it was probably from the House of Lords, because there was a lot of names that had come up.
Well, so Gleaves was a bishop, wasn't he? If he'd have been a Church of England bishop, he would have been a member of the House of Lords. It would have been a member of the House of Lords.
Well, once you're a bishop, you automatically become a member of the House of Lords. That's correct, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he may have had some friends and influence, sort of high up as well.
Oh, he's bound to have. I mean, the very fact that he was a bishop and he was an ordained bishop, I mean, that was going to put him into circles that most people probably wouldn't be able to get to. Do you know what I'm saying? If he'd have just been the vicar, he'd have probably known the local women's guild or whatever. You know what I'm saying? With him being a bishop, he's probably on speaking terms with councillors, members of parliament. You just don't know where he's. I'm not sure that being a bishop of the old Catholic Church would have entitled to him to a lordship, but Shackleton, his cohort who was going on about earlier on, he actually held, and this is true, it's not one he put up himself, he was actually had the title of the Earl of Kensington.
Right.
So maybe that's...
So do you think, when he's described afterwards as the self-styled bishop, do you think that was just that was just the media or whoever reported that, or the church trying to distance themselves from it?
I think when they say self-styled bishop, I think what they're saying is that he wasn't a bishop of a recognised religion as such. He weren't the Church of England. He wasn't Roman Catholic. He wasn't Jewish. He wasn't any of them. It was a church that had broken away from a bigger church. So I think that's where the self-styled bit comes in. I think it was just a tag that the newspapers put on him. He was an ordained bishop.
Yeah. I noticed Frags has been typing away furiously in the chat room. He said, absolutely, Bernie, Prince Charles has a lot of bishop friends. And,
of course he does.
And he bestows titles on them. I rest my case. Royal nonsense.
Yeah.
He's got away with words, hasn't he, Alfreds?
Yeah, I don't know how he's got away with them, but he's got away with them, yeah.
Frags is top man as Jason is as well, you know what I mean? They're not stupid and they know their stuff. They pick up stuff very, very easily, you know what I mean? It's and it's actually a pleasure to know them both.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Bernie. It's a pleasure to know you as well. Frags has just put in our chat room on Skype here. It's something that Sarah I think has posted. I don't know the significance of this, but you probably do. It just says 5 hostels, Branksome Road, Brixton, Richmond Road, Hackney, Black Horse Lane, Walthamstow, and 2 in Hounslow, Osterley Road, and Wellington Road.
These are the hostels that he had, that we know for a fact that he had. These are the ones that the council had gifted him. All these ones that Sarah's talking about, these are all places that the council have given to Gleaves to house young people, children, young runaways, people like that. I think each one of them was able to house about 10. So, at any one time he could have had anything from 50 to 60 runaways, children, whatever.
So you're talking about in this day and age, £1 million houses?
Yeah, in London, of course. Well, what Sarah didn't put on there is that he actually had 3 houses on Branksome Road alone.
Right.
I mean, she's giving you if there was any more, there could have been others that he brought with his proceeds, if you like, because you could buy an house back in the 1970s, you could have bought a house for maybe 4 or 5 grand, I would imagine,
Yeah.
And if he's getting £1,000 a month off all his houses, and it don't sound a lot now, but back in the day, £1,000 a month was a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Actually, Sarah must be pretty tuned in on your wavelength, Bernie, because she's added to that 2 extra hostels on Branksome Road. So,
yeah. Well, he actually had 3 houses on Branksome Road. He had number 58. We're not sure about the other 2, but I don't think I was held at 58. I think I was probably held at one of the other ones. I think it would have been a stupid thing to put me at 58 because no one knows the numbers of the other two, you see.
Oh, I see.
It wasn't far away though, were it, Bernie? It didn't take you long to get there.
Well, you know, so it's funny, right, because me and Sarah had a discussion about this. Even back then, years old, I knew it took no more than 2 to 3 minutes to drive from where I was abducted from to where I got to. No more than that. It took us about 6 minutes to walk it, 7 minutes maybe at max, to walk to Branksome Road from where I was abducted from, because we've done this. Me and Sarah, and a couple of other friends, Barry and Sarah, and my sister Jill as well. You know, we went down to London. Well, first off, it was just me and Sarah, and we did the walk. It took about 7 minutes to walk from the sheds where I was abducted from to Branksome Road. Putting that into a car, it took about 2 to 3 minutes. So I think it worked out about right. Sarah's convinced that it worked out about right, you know what I'm saying? But when we went down last time, we got photographs and everything of everywhere, but we didn't go back to Branksome Road, and I don't know why, I just now wish we had. Do you know what I mean? Because every time I do something more to do with it, more comes back to me. You know, I mean, I remember when I first mentioned it, and it was because I spoke to Sarah, and I told Sarah about what had happened to me. Because she's been very open about her story and other survivors' stories, and I thought, well, you know, I can talk to this woman and she'll listen to me. So I actually told her that I'd been abused, because I never even told any of the other survivors that I'd been abused, you see.
Yeah.
And she's been there 100% for me. Do you know what I'm saying? She's helped me so much to get my story out, and not only to get my story out, to help me remember stuff. But I told her before, when at the very first, I explained the house, I described the front of the house, the rooms in the house from when I went there with Joey Warford, the tree that was outside it. And when we went down there, there was a couple like that, but what it was, there was a wall right in front of you. You couldn't get behind the wall, between the wall and the window, you couldn't get behind it, you see. But there was quite a few of them down there, you know what I'm saying? So, when Sarah saw it all, she says, you know, I can see everything that you've told me, and, you know, this is the first time I've been, and it's like I know where we're going. And when we went down in September, she led the way. She knew where we were going. She knew exactly.
Mm-hmm.
How weird is that? A woman from the Midlands, and she's she's leading us to where everything was going off. She's only been there once.
Wow. I've just got a message on Skype, and a suggestion has been made, which I think is a very good one. Thank you for that suggestion. Maybe an idea to ask all the listeners if they, for example, know where the original Johnny Go Home film can be found, or if anyone listening has.
I can tell you where it is. It's on Justice Needed, because I posted it. It's not the full one. There's part 1 and part 2. It goes about 20 minutes into each one of them. But if you go onto my page on Facebook, Justice Needed, you'll find them both there.
That's brilliant, Bernie. If anyone's got any more information, any snippets of information that these guys may find useful, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I'll pass the message on. You can either find me on Skype at Andy_Young_Skype. I'm on Facebook, Andy Young, Enemy Within, and if you're not on Facebook, you can get me on my email, which is Andy Young, all one word, at unseen, UNSEEN.is, and I'll gladly pass any messages on, any information. One thing that caught my eye, it was a little while back in the chat room, that was posted by Sarah as well. Fingers must be on fire at this point. She did just post a couple of words there, and it was Prince Charles and who was it? No, where's it gone? It's gone back. Prince Charles and it's gone.
MI5's in your chat room.
Yeah. Now then, it was one of the names you've just been mentioning about. Oh, sorry, I'll come back to it when I find it. Sorry, Bernie.
Well, I was going to bring up a comment that she made, that Sarah made in the chat room as well, but this was regarding IRA bombing Wimpeys and killing somebody. I mean, it's scrolled away now, but...
Well, you know something, Jason, that is a good point that you've just brought up, because, I mean, we've linked that to the IRA. Now, it's a well-known fact that the IRA planted a bomb at the Wimpy in Piccadilly. Why they picked a Wimpy bar in the middle of a tourist place, I don't know, you know, because usually they picked on the government, didn't they? They like legitimate targets when they bombed over here. But on this one occasion, they did actually put a bomb in a Wimpy bar. I've never heard of that before, but with the Mountbatten link, because you know, there are rumours that it was MI5 that killed Mountbatten, but obviously the IRA were blamed for it in the first place. But Mountbatten was, you know, he was involved at Kincora. We know for a fact that he was a visitor to Kincora. Apparently he was well known in his circle for his likings to boys. You know, it's this stuff you can research yourself. You know, don't know when. You know, what I'll always say to everybody who's listening to the show: don't take my word on any of this. Research it yourself. You'll find that it's all true. You know what I mean? But Mountbatten, the Royal Link, the child abuse, the IRA link, even a member of the IRA was known to have been a visitor to the Armed Guest House.
Wasn't Jerry Adams' brother convicted of some sex offences against children?
Yeah, I don't know too much about that, 'cause that's something I've only just found out about recently, but you are right, Jerry Adams' brother is a sex offender, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and that can be researched as well.
I've just found that post of Sarah's, Bernie, and it's Prince Charles and Hornby, with question marks afterwards.
Yeah, I actually mentioned that earlier on. Charles Hornsby, right, he's the heir to the W.H. Smith fortune.
I'm with you, yeah.
He was, basically, he was the man who was the big cheese on the meat rack.
I'm with you.
He had an estate in Gloucester, massive estate. You know, we're talking about a man that's probably on the upper classes of on a class level. He's probably as high up as you can get. You know what I'm saying? We're talking terms with Her Majesty.
Oh yeah.
Prince Charles used to go for tea at his Gloucester. I mean, there's that can be researched well. That's been proven that Prince Charles actually went there for tea. So you know, if there was any links to the royals, then that would explain. If there was any links to the IRA, that would explain the bomb at the Wimpy bar down on the meat rack, because. Yeah, the involvement on the meat rack could have gone as high, you know, if it hadn't been for that bomb, that could have been as big a scandal as the Armed Guest House,
yeah, I get
any of them, it could have been, you know.
So do you think that bomb was to target somebody who perhaps double-crossed somebody?
I think it was to get rid of evidence, basically.
I'm with you. We've got Mahatma's thrown another question in there, and he's asking, is there any evidence on the McWhirter twins and Brian Crozier?
The Guinness Book of Records guys.
That's the one. And Brian Crozier he also adds.
It's not something I know about, but one of was it Ross McWhirter? I think he was killed by the IRA, wasn't he? But I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to try and pretend I know something I don't. I don't know whether there was any involved, but what I will promise I will do, and when I found out, I'll let you know, and then you can put it out yourself. I'll find out whether there was any. I've never heard any anything about the McWhirter twins, nothing at all. But they were in show business. You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people in show business that are involved in exploitation one way or another. So who's to say they weren't?
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I mean, you, like Paulie Yates. You remember Paulie Yates, Bob Geldof's ex-wife?
Yeah, Paulie Yates.
Yeah. Well, her dad was a paedophile. Jess Yates.
Yeah.
He was a paedophile. Whether he was convicted or not, I don't know. But I'm not going to mention no names, but I actually personally know one of his victims.
Right. Was he a bishop, or did he just kind of...
He was called the Reverend Jesse Yates, and you probably remember him best for he used to do Stars on Sunday on a Sunday evening.
I remember it well, mate, yeah.
Yeah, that was Jess Yates.
But then the poor devil found out her real dad was Huey Green, didn't she?
Well, this is the thing. We don't know whether he was or he wasn't. Because there was a big thing going on. Huey Green was having an affair with Jesse Yates, his wife. But whether he actually was the father, I don't know. But Paulie Yates definitely grew up calling Jess Yates the father. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Huey Green, you know, back in his day, Huey Green was the Simon Cowell of the 70s, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely, he was, yeah. I remember, you know, it was the highest rated programme on TV, as far as I remember.
Opportunity Knocks.
That's it.
And the other one was Junior Showtime.
We have got a request from Jimmy in the chat room, and he said, can we have a little bit of a correction to the current discourse? The IRA, I believe Bernie is referring to, are called Provisional IRA, and do have connections to MI5.
Right, and I apologise, but I'm not up on the actual names of them all. All I just know them as the IRA. I mean, yeah, there's the provisional IRA, there's the official IRA, there's Sinn Féin, there are different ones. He is correct, but I'm not sure which ones are we, and I don't want to be going accusing the provisional IRA of murdering Mountbatten when it could have been the official IRA. You know, I don't know. I just know it was the last three letters of their name was IRA. You know? So I apologise for any misleading. I haven't meant to.
No, it is quite confusing with all these different groups going under the broad banner of IRA, even though there's so many different splinter groups. So yeah, that's understandable. But thanks for correcting that, Jimmy.
Yeah. I like Mountbatten. I think Mountbatten was got rid of. In my personal opinion, I think Mountbatten was got rid of because he was becoming a bit of an embarrassment. He was in there. You know what I mean? He had children on his boat. He went to the King Cora. There was another one I can't think of the name of, but again, King Cora is just the most famous of them. You know, there were quite a few care homes in Belfast where things were going on. And not just in Belfast, in North Wales as well. Bryn Allen and that, you know.
Right.
And it's quite funny, you know, because you know they've got this CSA inquiry that's going on in London with Justice Goddard. I find it quite strange that before the inquiry even started, Theresa May made it clear that King Cora and Hort de la Gren, which are the two big things, they're the ones that people, if you're going to ask people about abuse, they're the ones that are going to come up. Obviously I've heard a lot more since then, but they're the two big ones, aren't they? But Theresa May has made it clear that they will not even be listened to. They're nothing to do with the inquiry. They've got their own specific ones in their own countries, but their own country come under British law. You know, at the end of the day, if someone was abused in King Cora, why can't they go to the CSA inquiry and give their story? They're not allowed to.
Look, it's a cover-up. You can tell it's a cover-up because it's been going on now for years and still nobody's been brought to account. Yet, despite anything, Britain can come to the conclusion that airliner that crashed in Egypt was blown up, even though the two countries involved said there's no evidence of it whatsoever. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people that don't want don't want to investigate anything, and will use any way that they can. But just going back to what you said about people in show business, isn't Bear Grylls, his dad, questionable, and also Nigel Havers?
I don't know. You've caught me on that one, Jason. I actually don't know nothing about them two at all. But that's. I will check that out myself afterwards, and I will find out for myself. But obviously, you have some kind of knowledge on it, but it's not something I'm aware of.
Yeah, that has come up in
discussions. Bear Grylls, he's military, special forces, very secret, not much known about him, you know what I mean? Nigel Havers is one of the top knobs, if you like, you know what I'm saying? He's very snobby. Mm-hmm. Now, wasn't his father the Attorney General, Michael Havers? Was that not his dad?
That sounds like the one.
That's right, yeah. I'm sure he's a member of House of Lords.
Yeah, well, on that, there is stuff about Havers, but I'm not too up on it at the moment with the Havers thing. But you are right, yeah. It would take someone as well. It would take someone as high up as the Attorney General to have the power to close files. Your average copper even going up to chief inspectors and things, they haven't got that kind of power. It's got to be somebody who's a law lord.
We've got a very busy chat room tonight, Jimmy. We've got a very busy one tonight, Bernie. I was just going to pass on what Jimmy had just said. He said, "You're okay, Bernie. There's a lot of confusion in this country over the IRA question." Sarah's asking, where are James Shackleton and Roger Gleaves now?
Right, well, I know where James Shackleton is. I can give you his address and phone number if you want. I'm not going to, though.
Probably not be a good idea to give that
getting tonight. Well, Shackleton is still in business. He's still doing undertaking.
Right.
Whether it's as the undertaker or whether he's passing the business on to his friend Roger, who surprisingly called Roger. Yeah, I know. He's got a business further in West London. I was actually a cheeky twat one night, and I actually rang him up and pretended his uncles had died, and I tried to arrange a funeral, and that's how I know he's got a friend called Roger that does funerals. They actually spoke to him for about half an hour, and I found out quite a lot of him. He didn't know who I was, obviously. It was a memorable phone call, got to tell you.
We've got Rob Freeman, he's been on the case, and Paul 1168 also says that Bear Grylls went to Eton, that posh school, and Rob has been doing a bit of digging by the looks of it, and he said Sir William Michael John Grylls, known as Michael Grylls, 21st of February 1934 to 7th of February 2001, was a British Conservative politician. He was implicated in the Cash for Questions affair, a political scandal of the 1990s. Sounds like he's been implicated in quite a lot more to me.
Yeah, probably. I was going to say something then. What was it now? It was just on it. I can't think what it was we were talking about.
Was it about Havers, the Attorney General?
No, it wasn't. It was something else. Yeah, we always go down on about Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Let's not mince words. It wasn't just the IRA.
No.
I don't. Again, if I've got a name, I apologise if I'm getting my names wrong here. But there was a loyalist paramilitary faction because in Belfast there were homes that were run by Catholics and there were homes that were run by Protestants, and that's pretty much back then how Belfast rocked. You had Protestants and you had Catholics. It weren't never the twain shall meet. You wouldn't hardly ever see a Catholic and a Protestant walking down the road going for a beer together. Just didn't happen. And in the same sense, there were homes in Belfast where abuse went on that were run by loyalists.
Yeah.
Now, when I say lawyers, it wasn't the actual IRA that were running these places, and it wasn't the UDA or UDF that were running them. It was the council. It was, again, exactly the same as what it is here. But politics in Belfast in the 1970s and 80s was a lot more roughshod than it is here. You know, you've got Labour and Conservative there. You've got religion going on. You had religion going on there, and it was a totally different ball game. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Jimmy is pointing out, either way, Bernie, the Provisional IRA and the UDA and the UDF were all funded by the British Crown. And
absolutely, yes, they were. He's spot on. He's spot on.
And all funded by the British Crown, and also, if you look at how they used to be referred to, it was obvious which side you were supposed to take, because if you were British, that is, because you had either loyalists or paramilitaries. I mean, come on. Which one are you going to, just as a psychological sort of issue, you're going to side with the loyalists, aren't you?
You know, people that grew up in Belfast in the 1970s, they're probably shouting at their radios now saying, why are you talking about something you don't know nothing about? And I respect what you say. You know, we don't know nothing about, we're not on about the Troubles, we're on about child abuse. And when there's child abuse, there's power. People from upper echelons, if you like, or people that seem to think that they're more powerful than others, use child abuse. It's one of the biggest. I can't even call you know when you got that prostitution being the oldest trade. You know, I don't even want to use that word in this sense, because it's so horrific but it is. Child abuse has been going on since time immemorial. You know, you know that prostitution. I tell you what, child abuse has been going on a lot longer than prostitution has.
Oh yeah, and what?
Because children don't say nothing. Nine times out of 10, you abuse a child, and they're going to be so scared that they're going to, you know, you might get one in 10 that might mention it.
Yeah.
1 in 100 they'll actually get any justice out of it. You know, you got to think in this country that 1 in 4 children are being abused at the moment, or have been. Now that's horrendous. That's 25% of the child population in this country.
Yeah, that is a figure that I'm not saying I disbelieve that figure in any way. I'm saying it's just an astounding, horrific figure. Yeah.
I mean, keep going on about in Rotherham, there was something about today. I can't remember. You know the guy that was commissioner, the police commissioner in Yorkshire, and he was going on about something about when Jimmy Savile in Rotherham. Now, I'm not being no disrespect to the guy, you know what I mean? But what chance has he got of getting evidence against Jimmy Savile 15 years after he'd done it, when he can't even get anything about the 1400 that have been bloody done recently?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Rob's been digging a bit on Nigel Haver's dad, Michael Havers, a Baron, Conservative politician and barrister. He made controversial statements during the Yorkshire Ripper trial. I bet he did. Yeah.
I bet he said something like, my son is going to be the greatest actor the world has ever seen.
Yeah. We'll agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah,
I thought Sylvester Stallone was pretty good, but hey.
But I still prefer Jim McDonald.
Jim McDonald, eh? Hey, he'd sort out the bloody problem, I tell you. Let him loose on the paedophiles, he'd sort it out. Now, but I know what you.
There we go. Rob's just shared the Wikipedia link for Michael Havers, Baron Havers. I've just popped that in the Skype room there for you as well, Bernie, if you want to use that in future.
Yeah, might be some research some links.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking today to someone, and I said I wouldn't go on to the Young Guest House, but I don't see how you can do a talk like this without bringing up the Young Guest House. I really don't know how you can, because, you know, it's one of those cases, it is controversial, and there was so much stuff that actually went on. I mean, Leon Britton. I'm gonna bring him up because I don't give a shit if people want to sue me. I've only got a TV anyway, you know what I mean? Everything else is my landlord's. Leon Britton, we know he was at the Home Guest House because, and this is factual, anyone can check this out themselves, you know, you don't need to take like I say, don't take my word on anything I say, check it yourself, always check it yourself. But Leon Britton was in the Home Guest House, there was a party going on, I can't remember what they called it now, fairies and something or other, right, and he was sat on a chair, and he had a little boy sat on his knee. This little boy was wearing a fairy costume or something. Now he was fiddling with this kid. Right, this is off this kid. This is this kid that said this. Yeah, the kid has got out of the Home Guest House and run down the road, and he's flagged down a passing police car, and he's told the police that he has been interfered with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now all this so far is researchable.
Yeah.
The police have gone with this child to the Home Guest House. He's gone in with the police and he's pointed to Leon Britton, sat in the chair, and said, that's him. Leon Britton didn't get arrested for nothing. No. He did not get arrested for nothing. All this is researchable. People want to, you know, call me, they can say, well, you can't know any of this stuff because you weren't. And I know I wasn't there, but I believe children. If someone tells me that, what reason have I got to call a child a liar?
Absolutely.
What was a child even doing at the Home Guest House?
Exactly. On the subject of Leon Britton, while you brought that up, Bernie, I feel we should mention that Brian Clare was going to come on and join us tonight on the show, but unfortunately Brian's having some issues with his computer, and I'm sure if he's able to listen, he'll be listening. So sorry we couldn't get you on tonight, Brian. We will get you back as soon as possible. But Brian, in a previous interview with us, did mention, and he said it very plainly, he was raped by Leon Britton. He was threatened that if he talked about it on air, they would release the film all over the internet of that event.
That's fine. You know, when you get to the stage of myself, Brian, and Mickey Summers, and Kaz, and all these guys are all wonderful people. You know what I mean? These are all survivors that are not scared to come on to the radio and talk about what happened to them. Yeah. Do they really think there's anything that they can say or do to us that's going to stop us? The people that get killed are the ones that threaten. The ones that do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing happens to us because
I'm sure I can speak.
And there'll probably be people out there now, Andy, that are thinking that bloke's a nutcase on the radio. He's talking all this. Don't go on. That doesn't go on in this world. It does.
I think there might be the odd one out there who's thinking that, but I think they're very few and far between, particularly the PIR listeners, because they're a pretty smart bunch. And the ones in the chat room, and the people who give me feedback have had nothing but praise for you and Brian and Mickey. There's some of the we get so many positive responses from people when we have you guys on, because it is something that is so despicable and it needs to be stopped, and the only way we can stop it is by shining the light in those dark places, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. See, you know, Mickey Summers was getting too close to the truth because they put an injunction on him, didn't they?
Yes, oh yeah.
You don't put injunctions and deed notices on anybody unless you're getting too close, you know.
That's
I mean,
right.
Cliff Richard, he's the perfect example, isn't he? You know what I'm saying? You know, if the man's as pure, as clean, and as innocent as he makes out, then why did he have to take a deed notice out? Why did he need to?
Well, Luby Lewis put in the chat room, do you think that Jana will ever be prosecuted, or do you think they're just waiting for him to die?
Yeah, I think Jana will probably be dead within the next year or two. I don't think he'll ever get to... He would never see jail. He would never see jail, no matter what.
No.
I don't think Jana will ever see inside of a prison or even a police station cell. I think Jana's probably going to be the next one to go, unless Cliff has an accident.
Yeah, we've got Paul has posted in the chat room, and it's in capitals, so I think he's quite serious with his information. He says, Jannah is protected by Mossad. Sorry.
Well, of course, because he was the head... right. Like I said earlier on, I didn't want to get into the anti-Semite thing, because I don't really know too much about it, but Jannah is the head of the Jews in Britain, you know. I can put stuff out there. I can, you know, some of the companies, the Jewish Council of Great Britain. That's one of the companies that he's one of the high. He's one of the heads of the Jewish Council of Great Britain. You know, let's look at some of the other famous ones. Tony Blair. Tony Blair was a Jew.
Yeah.
People don't know it. You know, Jeremy Corbyn. I'm sorry, but, you know, Corbyn's about the most suspicious, you know. So yeah, you're right. And there are an awful lot. I mean, Margaret Oppenheimer. There's
a bit of a clue with the name there, isn't there?
Yeah, of course there is. There's quite a lot. I mean, even David Cameron, apparently, from what I've been gathering. I mean, even David Cameron. You know, for such a small clique, there seems to be an awful lot. You know, let's go back a few years. Let's go back to the Childline scandal. Esther Ranson, Jew.
Yeah.
You know, and I do sound anti-Semitic, and I'm not. You know, you know, if somebody of the Jewish faith wants to talk to me, and you know, I'll be friends with them the same as I'll be with anyone else. You know, but we're not talking about just Jewish. We're talking about
Zionists.
Yeah.
It's a totally different ballgame. It's like Christianity. You know, You know, you've got Catholics, you've got Protestants, you've got Methodists, but they're all Christians.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, you know, the Zionists do want to take over the world, you know what I'm saying? And you know, considering the country of Israel has only been round since 1945, you know, before that, they didn't have a homeland.
Well, I think that's a whole other show, in it, the Khazar Jewish.
Oh, it is absolutely
a completely other show. I mean, we don't really want to get into that. I mean, what we really want to be sort of wrapping up with. I mean, we're getting towards 6 minutes to go. So, Bernie, what sort of things are you doing at the moment? What are you? Have you got in your Facebook group? Sorry, Andy, have you got a question?
Yeah, I've just got a quick comment there that caught my attention from Unique Lee. And he said, Tony Blurt, apparently converted to Catholicism as soon as he illegally passed the baton to Gormless Brown.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, Andy, you know what I mean? Catholicism and Jewism are like brothers.
And his Mrs. Cherie is a New Age witch. Makes you wonder how a man who supposedly represented a Christian Protestant state, and yet he switched as soon as the job, whatever it was done. Yeah, if you've got a few links you'd like to give out, Bernie, then we'll play out with the tune, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm involved with quite a lot of stuff at the moment, actually. I'm involved with a group called Helping the Homeless in Doncaster, which is a really, really worthwhile group. And a couple of my friends, Barry and Sarah, you know, they run the group, and what they do is, on a Monday and Friday at the moment, what they do is go out and feed the homeless. And you know, hats off to them. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's raining, snowing, sun, they're out there. You know, they spend all day Monday and Friday cooking for, you know, they're just absolutely fantastic people, you know. And if anyone would like to get involved, if you go on Facebook and it is Helping the Homeless in Doncaster, well, you can do it in most local places have got it. They've got a homeless group, but it's a really rewarding. I mean, I've been out a couple of times with them in Eltham, you know what I mean? And I can't speak highly enough of them, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've got Mark from the Love Kitchen in Liverpool is going to be coming on and having a chat with us very shortly. But I would like to extend the offer to Barry and Sarah, was it? If you get in touch with me through Bernie, we'd be more than happy to have you come on and talk about the great work that you do. And
they do a fantastic job, Andy. They really, really do.
Yeah. People's Internet Radio, we're all about solutions, and that sounds like a pretty good solution to a terrible problem that's afflicting us at the minute.
It is.
Your Facebook group, Bernie?
Right, well, it's not a group, it's a page, it's an open page, and it's called Justice Needed. It is actually on Facebook, so anybody, all this information that I give out, I post on the page. You may have to go back quite a way to find some of it, but there's a lot of information on there. I'm in the process, as you know, of writing a book, so if anyone wants to read that, because I'm writing it live, it's called Is This It? A Journey of Fear. And I'm writing that live on Facebook, so if anyone wants to read up to where I've got to, you're welcome to go and have a look at that. I'm also with United Against Child Abuse. That's with Brenda McNamara, you know, Mumsy.
Yeah, Mumsy.
Yeah. And she does a fantastic job. She always turns up at the protests that she organises. She's had a really horrible year. And if I can just say, Brenda, I think you're an amazing woman.
Absolutely, Bernie. And I'd like to say, you've been an amazing guest, and it's always enlightening to talk to you, Bernie. I'm full of admiration for the work that you're doing, and it's always a pleasure to have on here. And whenever you're ready to come back on again, whether it's when you got your book out or when you've got some more information, we'd be glad to have you back. I'd like to say thank you to you, Bernie, and a big thank you to Jason for helping out tonight.
I won't be able to do it if Jason wasn't here, you know that, don't you?
Well, yeah, I know you've got a really good bond with Jason, and I'd like to thank you both very much.
He's like my brother from another mother.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for coming on tonight. Before we play out, I'll just quickly remind the listeners that tomorrow we've got a very interesting show. We've got the man who sees the future, Steve Johnson, and he's just published a book proving the fact. So if you want to have a quick look at that before he comes on, if you go over to Amazon and look up Gifted and Burdened by Stephen A. Johnson, you'll find his book there, and it's just under £5. And then on Sunday, we've got a bit of a coup. We've got a nuclear physicist, Stanton T. Friedman, coming on to have a chat with us from over in Canada. He's well into his 80s, but he's absolutely sharp as a knife, Stanton is. Met him a few weeks ago over at Holmes in West Yorkshire. And he's an amazing guy, and we're looking forward to having a chat with him in his gym jams, because he says, I like radio, because you can do it in your pyjamas. But, right, well, it's not really worth putting a tune on now, because we're right at the end of the show. So I'll just urge everyone to stay tuned for Martin Farrell. He's got some amazing guests on tonight. And after that, we've got Unique Lee, 11 till 1. And then we will probably have some tunes from Tony Hurst at 1 o'clock or just after. And thank you very much, and good night, everyone. Thank you.